They say variety is the spice of life. Lord knows there's plenty of it to be had in the realm of Doom modding alone, but what if you're seeking something a little extra? Something a little unpredictable, something to add a dash of chaos to those maps and mods that you know like the back of your own hand. In that regard, I present to you corruption cards. So what exactly is corruption cards? Well, the pitch is simple. In standard mode, every map begins with a choice. You can pick from one of 3 cards, each with the ability to alter a particular aspect of whatever you'll be up against, or maybe even introduce an environmental hazard. To begin with, the choices you'll have to make may seem relatively unassuming. A partially invisible enemy here, remixed enemy spawns there, but then you'll find, even in the early stages, that it can still occasionally throw you a curveball, such as the relatively benign-sounding additional Sergeant spawn, which, first time round, I thoroughly misinterpreted. You see, that card just doesn't add one extra shotgunner to the map, it adds an extra shotgunner for every other shotgunner already on the map. As you might imagine, an important distinction to make. In the wake of such mishaps, you may be relieved to discover that whatever choice you make, it will only typically last for the duration of that particular map. That is, of course, until you reach the 3rd. That choice, and the choice presented in every other 3rd map afterwards, is permanent. Now, having to make such a decision may occasionally give you pause for thought. After all, it's a choice that will follow you through every subsequent map, potentially to the very end of the map set itself. So you can imagine my joy that when included in my very first selection of potential permanent cards, I was presented with one that drastically increases the number of explosive barrels present in a map. Now, I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be a selection of cards designed to make your life a little harder, but I can only see this as an objective win. If anything, the god of explosions must have been on my side during that particular run, because a subsequent map presented me with a card that also made enemies explode violently when they die. I was just happy as a pig in mud. How chaotic any given session of corruption cards can get will largely depend on how curious you are when it comes to discovering what the full implication of choosing certain cards is. In the early stages at least, you may find that it's reasonably easy to play it safe, picking the least consequential options out of a suite of largely inconsequential options, but as you delve deeper, not only will those permanent choices stack, but the selection of cards will begin to draw from ever higher tiers. Tiers typically govern the severity of a card, often coupled with the type of enemy it will affect, and for the most part, corruption cards does a fine job of making sure that these are doled out at a relatively steady rate over the course of multiple maps. This helps when playing with things such as vanilla weapon sets. You may not want things getting too chaotic too soon, you need a bit more of a gentler curve, but when it comes to your preferred weapon set or gameplay mod, you may find that the standard mode here is perhaps a little too tame. With that in mind, enter Hardcore mode. This essentially removes the brakes from the selection system. All tiers are part of the deck pretty much from the word go, and the real cherry on top, every choice you make at the start of each new map is now permanent. For sake of comparison between this mode and standard, my first batch of cards here included 2 tier 4 choices, one of which doling out a random card buff to all monsters whenever you pick up a key, and of course I picked that one because the only way to truly enjoy this mod is by embracing your inner agent of chaos. By the time I hit the 3rd map here in hardcore mode, I had ninja reflex cacodemons, enemies that may or may not arbitrarily decide that the yellow key is now an excuse to develop acid for blood, and revenants that had decided that the only place for Newton's law of gravity was firmly in the bin. Get down from there, Skelly boy, that's no place for you, that's the sky! It's forbidden. If there was any word to maybe suppress my urge for unbridled chaos, however, I'd say it came around the point where I had the option to give Archviles the opportunity to fly. Yeah, nah. Instead, I opted for the choice that turns imps into kleptomaniacs, stealing anything that isn't nailed down, which, if anything, much like the barrels, I could only view as a net positive. Because why go looking for items when the imps can bring them to you? In all seriousness though, there are some cards here that will give you some serious pause for thought before deciding to lock it in for the long haul. For example, one card that I was more than happy to steer clear of made a monster cursed. Killing it reduces your health to 1. Don't know about you, but that just sounded like the opposite of fun to me. I'm more of the kind of person that's happy to roll a dice on a card that just gives every monster a random card buff. I guess it's all about what kind of chaos you want to embrace. The kind of chaos that could end your run before it's time, or the kind of chaos that gives the Spider Mastermind a jetpack. All things considered, however, you could just say fuck it, remove choice from the equation entirely, and enable chaos mode. Much like hardcore mode, cards here are permanent, only this time they get picked for you, and it's simply up to you to suck it up and deal with it. My first card on this run was an absolute doozy. One monster is cursed, only this time killing it doesn't reduce your health, it instead duplicates nearby monsters, and oh boy, that one haunted me. Just when you think you're safe, boom, instant horde. As you might imagine, Chaos Mode is very much designed for those who want to put themselves at the mercy of RNG, but as we all know, RNG can be a fickle mistress, and believe me, this mode can come down on you like a ton of bricks. If anything, I feel like I was receiving some karmic blowback here for all of the barrels I was enjoying earlier, because, oh god, just look at it. Just look at it. If somehow you begin to tire of the effects that this mod can have on the standard enemy roster of Doom, believe it or not, this mod is also compatible with mods that swap out the enemy roster entirely, even mods that randomize said rosters. It's ridiculously compatible, and believe me, I combined this with a third degree of mods. I even went as far as Eons of Death, which is probably one of the most redundant combinations I could possibly think of, because it's already unbridled chaos to begin with, and corruption cards on top is barely perceptible when you're just trying to figure out what the ever-loving heck is even happening. Just to push the boat out maybe a smidge further, I even tried it with H-Doom. And guess what? It works. I can't really show you much, but it absolutely works. And I even managed to get myself a card that I hadn't seen in any of my preceding runs, one that causes a random earthquake to occur in the middle of a map. But honestly, I'm just super impressed with how effortlessly corruption cards can handle these varied enemy rosters. Doubly so when you consider all of the differing buffs and attributes that could potentially be shuffled between all of them. The variety of cards themselves is reasonably nice, 50 unique cards in total if I'm not mistaken, and despite my time spent playing it, I'm reasonably sure that I've yet to experience them all, but such is the nature of a mod that deals in aspects of randomization. All in all, corruption cards is just a nice dash of extra spice that you can sprinkle on your favorite stuff if you feel like it could do with a little bit more kick. How much you apply, of course, is entirely up to you, but if you feel like your preferred mods have gotten a little stale lately, I implore you to slap it together with this and see if it can't help liven up the action for you. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that this is a hearty recommendation in favor of corruption cards. Just a real fun idea implemented supremely well, and most assuredly well worth giving a spin. It's certainly a mod that I'll be keeping on standby for when it comes to spicing up my own favored roster of mods, and if you find yourself hankering for a taste of corruption cards yourself, you'll find the link, as usual, in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mod you'd like to see me cover, not only in Doom Mod Madness, but also Mod Madness, because we do occasionally cover other games here. Occasionally. But until next time, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you so very much for watching. Icarus out.